All right, so it was a cage match on track, and I think I'm going to have to set up a cage match between Romain Grosjean and Joseph Newgarden after this one. The second annual Nashville Grand Prix here in Music City. As crazy as the first one, perhaps more crazy in some ways. We had a crash car win the race again. That's, okay, check that box. We had almost 10 yellows. Okay, check that box. We had a lightning delay. That's new. We had a lot of beef. It seemed like every single crash, drivers were mad at each other. And we had the closest street course finish in history, fourth overall closest finish in terms of road and street courses when you can add the natural terrain road courses into that as well. This has kind of been, like I keep saying, and it seems to keep extending as we go further and further down into this crazy rabbit hole of an IndyCar season. This has been some of the craziest few days, and I guess it's been a month and a half of IndyCar racing that we've ever seen. So let's talk. I guess we'll start with the beef. Romain Grosjean and Joseph Newgarden. Big crash. Newgarden, ultra aggressive. He's trying to win his home race. Puts Romain Grosjean in the wall. There's no doubt about it that it was definitely, if not borderline, maybe, probably, you know what, I'll just say it. He probably should have gotten an avoidable contact penalty for it. However, the Romain Grosjean stands, and yes, I'm going to use Stan in a video, they were coming after Joseph Newgarden crazy on Twitter. So Newgarden started firing back, and you know what? I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. Trust me, I'm not going to throw stones in that glass house. The guy has passion, and frankly, we need more drivers, IndyCar drivers, to show that raw emotion. He cares about this. And so when people are lighting him up on Twitter and saying he's trash or whatever, yeah, he has a right to defend himself. Was he wrong to crash Romain Grosjean? Yes. Does it matter that he's causing drama on Twitter? I think it's good. I think we've seen over the past, 40 days in IndyCar that is good. So I'm fine with it. What else did we have today? So I guess I'll talk about what's currently going on, which is a developing story, which is that Colton Herta's car is, as I'm recording this, currently being torn down in technical inspection. Of course, we remember last week with Alexander Rossi, he won the Indy GP race and then got tossed out for the car being technically underweight, though it meant the minimum weight because they used a water bottle in the nose cone of the car as ballast. That doesn't seem to be the case with Colton Herta's car, and the question is, what is that, and will there be a penalty? At least one part, apparently, according to my little birds down there next to that car, at least one part was confiscated by IndyCar officials. What could that part be? I'm sure we'll find out sometime midweek, but it seems like Colton Herta, or at least his team, is in a little bit of a pickle. Scott Dixon, got to talk about him. Spoiler alert. He's finally broken Mario Andretti's hold on the second most all-time wins in IndyCar racing. Scott Dixon now only has A.J. Foyt in his way, and what a way to do it today to beat Mario or to surpass Mario. Broken car, had that huge schmozzle early in the race in which the underside of the car got damaged. They had to crank a whole bunch of downforce out of the wings. He was essentially running with no downforce, which frankly may have helped him a little bit on some of those restarts now that they've moved the start-finish line to, or at least the start line for the restarts. They finished the race where they traditionally finish the race. It's very confusing. But those long straightaways are a huge part of Nashville and potentially places where you can really set up a pass if you get a good run on somebody. Well, if somebody's running almost no downforce like Scott Dixon, you're not going to be able to catch them and pass them. But it was in those tight corners where Scott Dixon's mastery showed. And he earned this win over Scotty McLaughlin. Like I said, the fourth closest road and street course finish ever, and the closest finish ever on a street circuit. So, how did all 26 drivers end up finishing in this race? Let's take a look at the results. So like I said, it's Scott Dixon scoring yet another win over Scotty McLaughlin, a New Zealand 1-2, the second time that's ever happened. The first time it was at Texas in 2021. Alex Palou completed the podium finish, apparently actually spoke to Chip Ganassi after the race. Ganassi congratulated him on that third place finish. And oh, by the way, Scott Dixon is in the points fight now, as well as Scott McLaughlin, as well as Alex Palou. The points are so close now, and as we know, you never want to give Scott Dixon a chance. Alexander Rossi was stopped on track and stalled at one point, finished fourth. Colton Herta, asterisk next to this one right now, fifth. A great day for him after getting put in the wall early on by Dalton Kellett. Lost his front wing, lost a lap, but came all the way back to finish fifth. Joseph Newgarden, a lot of people are going to be talking about him this week, but hey, you know what? They need to, because it was a great race for Newgarden. It was quite elbows out as well. A great strategy call from Arrow McLaren SP and their great pit box over there to put Felix Rosenqvist on the green tires and get him a top 10 finish. Christian Lundgaard also finished in the top 10. It looked like he was going to win at one point. Jack Harvey as well. Good day for Rahal, outside of Graham, of course. Simon Pagenaud was up at the front at one point, but certainly seemed like his car was not so strong. Will Power had a gearbox issue that plagued many drivers after getting hit in the rear. Rinus VeeKay finished one lap down. He was in the wars throughout the day, as was Helio Castroneves, who brought out one of the yellows. Marcus Ericsson had a mechanical failure. Again, one of those gearboxes after contact. Callum Ilott just had a miserable day. He was funny on Twitter, though, last night. Here's your crown, King. Romain Grosjean is going to be another one that so many people are going to be talking about this week. We're going to have to put on that cage match. He got put in the wall by Newgarden. Connor Daly looked completely gassed after the race. They showed him on NBC for about 2 seconds, and he was just kind of the face of a very, very difficult and hot day, muggy day as well. Jimmy Johnson appeared to have a mechanical failure, which put him in the wall, and I'm going to stick to that. I'm going to defend Jimmy on this one. David Malukas and Kyle Kirkwood had a great Indy Lights battle last year. They both ended up in the wall after it looked like David Malukas and really Kyle Kirkwood may have both been podium contenders. Takuma Sato and Devlin DeFrancesco, tell me if you've heard this one before, they had some beef. And Devlin DeFrancesco really got hard into Sato. They both ended up in the wall, and Takuma was none too pleased. Graham Rahal has the dubious distinction of being one of the few drivers, and unfortunately I say few today, that crashed twice during the race. Pato O'Ward lost a gearbox, very similar situation to what happened at Long Beach last year, in which he lost the championship. He had some interesting words post-race on Twitter. There seems to be a common trend there. Dalton Kellett, after a great qualifying, his first ever Fast 12, ends up with a disappointing 25th place finish. And Simona Di Silvestro, really an innocent bystander, getting caught up in one of those massive pileups and will be the last place finisher today. All right, so we love having guests on this channel, and I've got a local and somebody who's making his first appearance on the David Land channel. You know it. He's the man. Danny B. Talks. Danny, this was your first IndyCar race ever. Give me your first impressions on IndyCar racing.
So overall, it's definitely different. It's definitely not what I'm used to. Usually I'm used to more NASCAR, of course. Over on my channel, Danny B. Talks, we talk more about NASCAR racing usually.
Look at him with the plug right off the bat. He's a pro.
But, you know, that's my background.
Mm-hmm.
I come from more NASCAR racing, used to, you know, dirt track, short track, that kind of racing too.
This looked a lot like a short track race at times.
A lot of cars left looking like it, that's for sure. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good event. A lot of people in Nashville seem to be happy about it. You know, we'd like to see this event keep coming for years to come. We're in Nissan Stadium right now. Who knows what's eventually going to happen with Tennessee Titans? They're supposed to be not renovating, building a new stadium in the parking lot where the paddock was this year. So who knows what potentially happened to this course layout? But, you know, as a motorsports content creator here in the Nashville area, I think more racing is good for the area. So I'm happy it's here. I would like to see it continue in the future.
You know, it's funny. Scott Dixon was even talking about some of the construction just in general in Nashville, potentially changing some of the track layout over the course of the years. Next year is the end of the current contract, the third year, and they'll have to renegotiate for a fourth year. You're a local. Do you see this event having longevity? Obviously, there's a concern about the stadium, but just locally, what's kind of the vibe? Do the locals seem to like it, and perhaps more importantly, do the politicians like it?
Well, if you stay away from the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway and ask other people within Nashville, I think you'll get a great answer of how they like racing. But all jokes aside on that, I think overall racing has become big here. It started when we got NASCAR Championship Award ceremonies back in 2019, and then obviously then NASCAR and IndyCar have come to town. I think what conversations I've had with local track president Eric Moses, Nashville Super Speedway, I mean, he seems to be pretty high on the Music City Grand Prix. If we're in a situation where they don't know where to put the Grand Prix, I think him, SMI, have a pretty good relationship with people at IndyCar. You could even potentially see a future return to Nashville Super Speedway. I think Nashville in general likes having all forms of motorsports here. Now, as far as the Music City Grand Prix, I think there is alternative track maps we could go to in the future. Obviously, I think next year comes back to the current configuration, and then we see the construction take forth on the Titan Stadium. That's more of a question of what happens after next year.
So this was your first time not only in an IndyCar race, but spending some time in the IndyCar paddock and particularly in the post-race press conference, hearing from some of the IndyCar drivers. What are some of your impressions on the IndyCar culture and the difference between the drivers maybe versus stock cars?
It's an interesting vibe. It's like, for example, listen to Scott McLaughlin. He seems like a very humble guy. I enjoyed listening to him. Alex Plow had questions he wasn't quite ready to answer, as you can probably expect. But I thought that was interesting to hear in person. I'm kind of glad I was here for some of that. Obviously, this was
he didn't say anything interesting, by the way.
No, nothing. But this was the first race where I think he's interacted with Chip Ganassi.
Yeah.
All this has went down. So
that was probably the most interesting part of that.
It was interesting to hear him kind of open up a little bit about that. Not open up too much. Nothing big was what he said.
Well, I mean, what he said was essentially like, the conversation was, hey, you did a great job. And Pelot even admitted, like, last year, if he'd finished fifth, Chip wouldn't have come and said anything to him. This year, whether it's this year or last year, if you get a podium, driving for Chip's team, Chip's going to come up to you and say, hey, good job, man. I mean, and ultimately at the end of the day, the reason it's in court, the reason we have court is so we can continue to do business with the people, hey, maybe we're having a disagreement without having to actually, have a cage match. By the way, I think SummerSlam was here about a week ago. You are also at that.
Yeah,
something about a tractor or something?
Yeah, so it's funny. Yeah, Nissan Stadium, possibly the site of Brock Lesnar's last match where he used a tractor to tip over the ring with Roman Reigns, but still was pelted by tables and chairs and all that by Roman Reigns and his family, the Usos.
So Roman. So we've already got a Roman. So if we get Roman Grosjean and Joseph Newgarden in on a tractor, do you think we could get IndyCar's ratings up to like 2 million people?
Oh man, I would say yeah. Let's have a WWE IndyCar crossover. Book it, Triple H. Come on.
Book it. All right, Danny B. You already kind of did your plug, but plug it again before we. What's up? Oh, we got 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes.
This thing director here, someone got 5 minutes.
Who's this guy? I don't know. There's some guy directing. Oh no, you got to get in here now.
Those fools from the NASCAR Weekly podcast.
Yeah, that weekly podcast. Here, look, it's Darian.
Hello. What's going on, yo? It's your boy Darian Gilliam, aka Black Flags Mayor. All right.
They're just letting anybody in here now. Okay.
These darn Rams fans, they beat us in one Super Bowl. They think they own the joint. I mean.
Hey, Darian was the only media member that Colton Herta called out by name.
Yeah,
so he said hi. So, yeah, anyway, plug.
Hey, I'm Danny B Talks. My YouTube channel is Danny B Talks. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. Come check me out there. You'll see some great content on there. Working on some more history-style videos. I haven't done those a little bit, but there's more coming in the future. Have a cool piece coming on Kyle Busch here soon. So look forward to that. And you'll see a vlog of me and my wife Claudia, who joins me at most every race trip. Two NASCAR fans' first experience at an IndyCar race. So see more from us from a first-hand point of view coming out hopefully this week.
All right, and we'll be looking for that. So from the Music City Grand Prix, I'm David Land, and this is Danny B Talks. He let me stay at his house this weekend, so that's all you got to do to get on this channel. No, just kidding. No, Danny's a great guy, and definitely go subscribe to him. I can't wait to see that vlog. It's going to be great. We'll see you guys in the next one.